I'm going to be talking about Mantra Lingua's entry into the American market and how we as a British publisher who were dealing with niche publishing was able to enter into America. Just a brief introduction before I start as to who we are. We are world leaders in multicultural publishing and have been doing books in different languages, as many as 52 different language editions. So our list includes picture books, which is picture books which are our own originations, but also picture books that are classics, such as Hungry Caterpillar, We're Going on a Bear Hunt. We also do non-fiction books, dictionaries. But we're not just your ordinary book publisher. We also are involved in technology. And we have a lot of multimodal technologies that suit different learning styles in British schools and in schools generally. So the books, our list therefore, our multimodal list and our multimedia list includes things such as ebooks, where books are in different languages for English language learning. But in addition, they're also interactive books, where the books can speak. So we're combining traditional print technology with digital technology, so the books come alive with sound. In addition, we have software, and software that enables teachers to be able to create their own content. So they can create their own books, which talk, they can create their own posters, which speak, they can create anything they want, flashcards, very easily, very cheaply. We also have hardware, and the hardware is Vivos, which we've just developed and which is patent protected. It is redefining sound. So what happens with Vivos is that it actually takes any paper that the teacher has put in, it could be any substrates, cardboard, anything like that, and you could actually then change it. I just want to change. Sorry, I just want to move on to the next slide. And you can change it and link audio to it, as well as you can link, thank you. You can link audio to it, as well as link video. So it's a very unique way of doing it. I'd like to show you a little bit about the Pen Pal, because I think the Pen Pal is going to be important because it lies at the heart of everything that Mantra does. And the Pen Pal is something which is an electronic device like this, and it has bearing in what I'm going to say in relation to America. So it brings sound to paper. So let me just give you a quick demonstration. You touch the arrow here.
Farmer duck. If your pen has more than one language, touch English.
So I'm not sure if you can hear this, but it's reading the story out to you in English.
There was a duck who had the bad luck to live with a lazy old farmer. The duck did the work. The farmer stayed all day.
And then you can hear it in Spanish. Oops, sorry.
Había una vez un pato que tenía la mala suerte de vivir con cierto granjero perezoso. El pato hacía todo el trabajo. El granjero se quedaba todo el día en el campo.
So I just shut that for the moment. So all our technologies then are aimed for children, but we also have our technologies which provide tactile talk, we call it, and it provides paper that is actually with raised relief, and there again it talks. So that's for the SEN market. Now coming to the US, we started looking into the US market about 8 years ago, and we were already had been doing business there with library suppliers in the main who were looking to buy in our books to sell to the libraries for their own communities, EAL communities, or communities who are from who had different language needs. So we had a small group of customers then, but we felt that the demographics were very similar in terms of languages to that of the UK. Obviously not in terms of size, because the US market is huge, but it was really in relation to the languages that were required. So we felt that we really wanted to seriously look at a channel of entry into the US, which is going to be much more strategic. So we contacted the UKTI office in London and met up with Ian Patterson, who was the international trade advisor for London. And we realized that we really needed first to do a lot of research, serious research, into who our potential customers were likely to be in the US. And then thought about commissioning a marketing report using one of the trade councils in the US. As you know, there are many UKTI trade councils all across America, but we were particularly looking at a group that was familiar with book publishing in general, and in particular with children's publishing, and also, hopefully, that they also were able to have some knowledge of the educational distribution market. And we found the person in Richard Knox, who is based in Chicago, at the Chicago consulate. So Richard was the ideal person in the sense that he had experience in children's publishing, and indeed he's working for a distribution company as well previously, who was an education distributor dealing with languages. So we commissioned a tailored marketing report, and I think the equivalent now to that is the OMIS reports that the UKTI do. So the report was looking into specific areas. The first was really to look at major distributors who were specializing in languages for children. And there were many that were specializing, being American, Spanish for the Hispanic market. But we were looking at people who were also thinking about other language needs as well, and trying to fulfill for that, and trying to service those particular needs. And finally, we were looking for representations at the school level. So did they have contacts with the key districts? Did they also have contacts with the schools? And were they au fait with dealing with foreign companies? So with that in mind, 10 people were selected from that report. And of that 10, we then wrote to them, but given an introduction by the UKTI office, by the consulate office, so that added great weight to the proposal. So there was an introductory letter from them, and that added weight to the proposal, as you can imagine. The second part of the brief was really to look at logistics, because once we decided that we wanted to make an entry, serious entry into the US, and it wasn't just going to be with one group, an exclusive group, we needed to be able to know where the stock was going to be positioned, and so looking at a warehouse. Now the criteria for that was different totally, because we wanted to be sure that the people who were in fact the final applicants were able to deal with SKUs, and many small SKUs, so stock keeping units, which were small, but in terms of quantity, very large. So we needed, that was one criteria. The second criteria was that they had to be meticulous in their picking, because you're dealing with 52 languages, and of course we had no doubt that the pickers at the warehouse wouldn't be able to read all the languages, so it was important for them to be able to pick accurately. So when you're faced with, for example, you want to actually pick the Arabic, and you're faced with Albanian on one side, Arabic in the middle, Amharic on the other side, and this is just the start of all the languages, to make sure that you're picking the right one needs a lot of careful attention to detail. So that was one of the big criteria that we had. And Richard directed us towards one of the warehouses called Import Logistics, who had the benefit of actually dealing with a German customer who was importing into America engineering parts. So by their very nature, he was importing in nuts, bolts of different sizes, different shapes, and Import Logistics were very good at being able to pick those. In addition, Import Logistics was based in Chicago. So this is their premises in Chicago. And being in America, it was in the middle of this wonderful, wonderful area, unlike our British counterparts, which generally are in the middle of an industrial estate. So this is 1,400 square feet of property there for fulfillment. And because they were in Chicago, it meant that they were the central hub for transport, for road and rail. So it was ideal for external transport, well, domestic transport out from there. In addition, they were a bonded customs zone. So it meant that shipments could come directly from the UK into the port in America, into New York, and then taken by road directly into the warehouse. So that was of tremendous benefit when you talk about large shipments of goods going, of books going across there. And finally, the group Colin Han was English. So there were no cultural barriers or cultural differences. We spoke the same language, and it was really great to be able to deal with them as a first introductory step. It was, of course, very important that we had the right team, because to be able to change midstream is hugely, hugely costly and really does damage the business. So we spent quite a lot of time over that and to make sure that we had the right people. So after that, that was looking at the warehouse. We had the warehouse set up. We then had to think about localization. Now, localizing our particular products for the US market was, of course, very costly. And it really made us committed to America, because it meant that we had to change a lot of the text in the book, not only for Americanized spelling, but also for American terms. For example, this one is Lima's Red Hot Chili. In England, it is called Lima's Red Hot Chili on its own. In America, chili has connotations with the Mexican dish chili con carne and means beans. So we had to make the change, and it wasn't just to the inside of the book, it was to the covers as well. So you're really truly committing yourself in terms of costs when you're thinking about America, to make sure that it's absolutely right for the American market. But it wasn't just the books that had to be changed, it was also the sound files. And I think if any of you noticed, the sound files here was in American English. So it was with the accent, so that to show that we were seriously committed to America, we changed all the sound files for the English, but also had to change all our Spanish sound files to make it Mexican Spanish, so that it was appropriate for the American market. Then we also had to change all our literature. So that was one of the big challenges. We had to change our marketing literature as well as our website to localize it for the American market. Another big challenge was the fact that with all these various regulations as to import of goods into America, we had to make sure that we were compliant with the statutory regulations. I hate these acronyms, but I think it's CPSC, which stands for Consumer Protection Safety Commission Act. And it meant that all the books had to be actually branded in a certain way and with tracked information, so that you could easily identify when it came into the US, and this is really for quality control and for safety precautions, particularly since we were dealing with children under the age of 12. And then for our electronic products, again, there's a lot of particular regulations as to electronics, and that had to be complied with as well. Another big challenge that we had was in relation to our warehouse. How do you control and manage inventory? Managing inventory is horrendous at the best of times, as everyone here knows. But when you're dealing with stock in 2 locations across the pond, you're dealing with huge distances, you must get it right, otherwise there's cost implications. So we had an inventory control system set up, which actually looked at calculating the stock transfers on the basis of historical sales, and then also in terms of projected sales. And of course, we don't get it 100% right. We tend to go for a little bit of overs to make sure we've got enough stock there. But suddenly you might get an order which is a huge order, and it means then in order to be able to secure that order, we have to send books across by air, which is of course very costly. So after all these years, where are we in America now? We have actually kept with the same 3 or 4 different library suppliers that we were before we started, because they specialized in the type of publishing that we did. but we also have a new host of new library suppliers. And in particular, the big strategic area that we've developed in is in terms of our distribution. We've linked up with 3 very important book distributors who collectively have about 70 or 80 reps going around to schools all across Europe, all across America. And they fulfill for those schools, they talk about the products to those schools. And we also work very closely with key districts, key school districts, to customize products which are specifically for their purposes. The demographics, again, changing all the time, but again, they are similar to what we have here. We deal with 52 languages. We're able to be very agile in our publishing, so able to add new languages very quickly. We're able to offer very new, exciting software, as I said, for teachers to create their own content. So you can do books like this, which is on free software, which is associated with the pen. So you get DTP software here, where you can actually write your own stories, link sound to them, and then have it professionally published. This was done by a school, and they were talking about the United Nations rights for the children, and it was done by a school in Hampshire, and it's a talking pen book as well, so you can actually hear sound from there, and you can hear the children speak about it, and you can have it published in that way. There again, we do the tactile talk, which is again raised relief areas for SEN, so ideal for the special needs market, both here and in America. If there are any special languages that America, for instance, want, we can do it, and we're now looking into doing Burmese, which seems to be on the agenda. I think after Aung San Suu Kyi won the Nobel Prize, there's been a high profile now on that, and suddenly people are wanting to have some books in those languages as well, and that we can do. We have a director of operations who's based in America. We also have a physical presence in America, in that we have an office in the warehouse with dedicated phone lines, so that at any point anyone can contact them. So for all intents and purposes, we're also an American company. And then, as I said, we work not only with schools, as we do here, but we work with the blind. Our technologies work with the blind and partially sighted markets. Here with the RNIB, in America with the American Blind Association for labeling products. We also work with museums to sound enable and make their museum exhibits much more interactive and affordable. So with that, I would say that, we've progressed in the last 8 years. I'd say when everything was in place, it's been about 7 years, and we have progressed seriously into the American market. And if there were 2 to 3 things I'd recommend with as to how I would recommend people to enter, or if they're looking into entering into the American market, would be to really have a close relationship with UKTI. And I'm not speaking on their behalf at all. It's just to say that they were very helpful in getting us the information, the market intelligence on us, or for us, in addition to give us support throughout these years. And then also to link up with the right partners. And for that, I think there's a lot of monies that are involved before you can see returns that you must be prepared to have up front and to be prepared to spend up front. You must go out and meet your prospective partners. Otherwise, it's very difficult to be able to have that relationship of trust, for them to know who you are, your history, how it coincides, how you can work together. And in addition, to be able to source the right partner in terms of either the agent or the distributors you're working with. And to be able to also be optimistic, because the market is huge, but it means you have to really work at it hard. But if you do so, the rewards can be very good.